Welcome everybody to day 59 of building the flight booking engine. We have covered a lot, and if you have been consistent, I'm sure you have learned so many things. And now today I want to get into the infrastructure and even make our application much better. And like from time to time, I've told you I'll keep on building things on the front end, on the back end, the DevOps, with the goal of making it even better. The goal, of course, is to finish the MVP in time, and day by day, I'm getting close to it. Hopefully, I will get done. And today is another day to implement another concept. Okay. Actually, we did it in day 58 where I introduced Kafka. So if you've not watched that video or that stream, please go to day 58 in the playlist. Okay. Check the description for the playlist and study it. Listen and study and understand what Kafka is all about. So I want to start implementing some infrastructure in this Docker Compose file. Like you all know, in this Docker Compose, you have a number of services. Let me maybe close this file and maybe also show you the Docker file. So this is the Docker file, and then Compose, and both of them opened. Okay. So you see, Docker file is a simple setup. Okay. Python 3.12 Slim. Okay. We have UV being set up, our working directory, okay, set up. Okay, we have UV run sync being run, okay, then the command to run the application. Then here we have a number of services, okay, in Compose. Of course, we have our application, we have the database, we have Redis. And now I want to add one more, okay, which is Kafka, and actually Kafka UI too. So we're going to add Kafka and Kafka UI. So if you don't know what Kafka is all about, please watch the previous video in day 58. So let me start. I want to look at my notes to make sure I do not leave anything and anyone behind. So the first thing I'm going to do, just like you see, we have blocks for the FastAPI, the DB, okay, and Redis, okay. So right down here, I want to simply create another block, okay, which will be Kafka, okay. So you can see AI is trying to suggest. So let me check my screen, decide to make sure that everything is big enough for you to see. I'll scroll. Okay, I think this is big enough. So let me, okay, so I think this is good. All right. So the first thing is to define our service called Kafka. Kafka, if I can spell it correctly. Then on the next line, I'll define, I'll tab in, okay? Like you can see AI is trying to suggest, okay? I'll use an image, okay? An image, and this image is going to be from Confluent, not Confluence, but Confluent. So Confluent is the company that creates the official images for Kafka, okay? So for you to see this, I'll go to the browser briefly and look for Confluent Inc. This one here, CP Kafka, is the one we want, okay, from Docker Hub. So Docker Hub is where all images are stored, okay. So the image we want is this one here, Confluent Inc. CP Kafka, okay. Then after that, we shall specify the actual image version, okay. So this is the tag, and shall specify the tag and version. So if you read this, says Docker image for deploying and running the community version of Kafka package with Confluent community download. So this is what we are going to work with, okay? And the version is going to be version 7.8.3, okay? I've worked with it before and it's actually stable and okay. And maybe before going actually very far, I need to actually tell you the plan, okay? The actual plan for today. So I have broken down this part of Kafka into modules, okay? So the first mod is called the infrastructure, where we're going to deal with the DevOps, okay? Actually, I should have showed you this at the beginning. So the first thing that is going to happen is this, okay? Or the goal, okay, is that we want to get Kafka running locally, okay, and understand the moving parts. So as you watch this video, your goal should be this, okay? Understand Kafka, all the moving parts of Kafka configuration, and have it running. That is the goal of this. Then the number of key concepts that I want to cover, okay, which is the Docker Compose, okay, how to orchestrate services. But I think I've done this, but it is something that you should know, okay. Then we need to understand something called KRaft, okay. I'll explain to you what KRaft is, okay. I'll explain KRaft, and I'm going to explain what Zookeeper is. Then after that, I want to also talk about Kafka UI, okay. So key concept, Docker Compose, okay, KRaft, and Kafka UI. So we're going to have about 4 or 5 modules in this Kafka series, okay? I've discovered that in the past, I put all concepts in one stream, which I think would have been overwhelming for those who are following and also for me who is trying to build live. Because I would discover that at the end of this long series, even my energy, okay, becomes very low and I'm not as active during the stream, okay? So let us go step by step. So what is the action plan, okay? Action plan is this. I'm going to modify the compose.yaml, okay? I'll add a Kafka image like I've just showed you, okay? The Confluent Inc. CP Kafka, which is this one here, okay? After that, the next thing is to configure what they call listeners, okay? I'll explain to you what a listener is, okay? We're going to have 2 listeners that we're going to configure. So the first listener will run on this port and the other one on this other port, okay? So we want to have separate ports for listeners. Then we shall configure the Kafka UI service. Then we shall also configure health checks, okay? So this is the DevOps, okay? This is the DevOps and the infrastructure part that we are going to deal with. It's very good to understand these things, okay? And when you understand them, you can go on and scale and learn more and go beyond, okay? And use them to actually land really high-paying jobs. After that, we shall simply run and verify, okay? And we shall check the Kafka UI running on port 8080, okay? And maybe you can create a test topic, okay? Just to see that the UI can do that for us, okay? Before we go into other deeper concepts. So, like I've told you, I want to have this, okay? Confluent Inc., okay? CP Kafka. I can actually just copy this, okay? And paste it here. So follow along very carefully, okay? So up here, I want to show you something. I don't know if I have it here. You see this thing called, or I said Redis latest, okay? It is not a good practice to do in Docker, okay? Or in Docker Compose. It's always good to mention the specific versions. So I implore you, I urge you, send me a pull request, okay? Okay? And edit this to a stable version of Redis, okay? Add the image, mention the specific version, okay? So even here, AI is trying to say Kafka latest, but I'm not going to go with the latest version, okay? I'm not going to go with that. I'm actually going to pick version 7.8.3, okay? So this is I want to specify the exact version of the Kafka image, which is provided by Confluent, okay? Then after that, then the next line, okay? I'm going to specify the container name, okay? This container will be called Kafka, okay? Simple as that, to make it simple. It will be called Kafka. And what else can we then do is to specify now the ports, okay? If you look at this file, okay, you see we have the same structure, okay? We have a container name here, we have image, then container name, okay? We have image, okay? We have image, container name. Even this one, you can also give it a container name, okay? So you should start seeing patterns, okay? You don't have to cram anything, my friends, okay? I'm showing you this so that you see patterns, okay, in these files. So I want to show you in this, we have environment, okay? We have ports, okay? We have, even here we have environment, we have ports. Okay, here we have volumes. Okay, so these are common things that you'll see in a Docker file. Okay, that you'll specify the image, you'll mention a container name, you'll have the environment variable, you'll specify ports, you'll specify volumes. Okay, so those are concepts that you should understand. Okay, and they are very simple. Like those, if you watch the first, I think within the first 10 streams of the playlist, between day 1 to day 10, I explained this, okay, when we're setting up Docker, okay, in detail. So you can check to understand the things in detail. But as we go on, I'll continue explaining them, okay? So this is this container name called Kafka. This configuration simply sets a fixed name for the container. This allows other containers to reach it easily using the host name Kafka. Okay, so this is going to be the host name. You can change it to what you want. Okay, but I want to just be consistent to give it an obvious name. Okay, I want an obvious name called Kafka. Okay, understand it. Then after that, what do we need to do? We need to now specify the ports. Okay, we need to specify the ports. So I will go to the next line. Okay, and I say ports. Okay, ports, full colon, go to the next line. Okay, tab, put a dash. Okay, quotes, say 9092 to 9092, close quotes. Okay, so what does this simply mean? This maps the host port 92. Okay, this first value, okay, is the host port to the container port. Okay, so the syntax is this. Let me put here. This is the syntax. Okay, you talk about you first say the host port, then you put a full colon, then you mention the container underscore port. Okay, so the container port is for internal use in Docker. Okay, in the Docker container. The host port is for external use. So you're mapping an external port for the host to an internal port for the container. So in this case, for our case, they're going to be the same. And like I've told you, these concepts are the same thing. You see the structure everywhere. Okay, like you see here for the database DB, we have a host port, container port. If you go to our FastAPI app, we have the host port, okay, being 8,000 the internal port being 80. Are you seeing that? The same concept applying. Okay, so I'll make sure that every time we do these things, I repeat explaining some things so that it goes deep in your mind. Okay, and you understand it very, very well. Okay, all right, now let's move on to something else. Okay, the next piece of configuration. Okay, which will be excuse me, the environment. Okay, I want to talk about the environment, where we can now set up the environment. Like I've told you, this is common. Okay, like you see here for our database, we have an environment. Okay, environment variables: Postgres user, Postgres password, Postgres DB. Okay, here we have the environment also. Okay, for the FastAPI application. Okay, and this is good for development. Okay, later for production, I can show you how to make it even better. Okay, so let's go to the next step. So even here, I'll have environment. Okay, again, I'll repeat. When you're studying these things, okay, look at patterns. Okay, identify patterns. Okay, identify patterns. But it's very important that you must have watched the previous video, day 58, to understand everything that is going on today. So the first thing first configuration I'm going to put here, hit tab, I'll say Kafka underscore craft underscore mode. Okay, full colon, and I'll say true. Okay, now I want to explain something. Okay, this one here tells the image to run in what is called the craft mode. Okay, back then, okay, before what is called craft mode, in the olden days, Kafka had an external tool called Zookeeper. Okay, so let me put it here. Okay, it was a tool called Zookeeper. I think this is the correct spelling. Okay, let me just put it here. Okay, but it was called Zookeeper. So what was Zookeeper? Zookeeper was a tool that was made to manage. Okay, to manage the brokers in Kafka. Okay, but now Zookeeper introduced extra work. Okay, because you had to configure a separate application, okay, and you have to manage it. In the event that Zookeeper went down, your Kafka wouldn't work, okay? So the developers of Kafka introduced something called KRaft, okay, which helps us with managing the brokers. So you don't have to install and manage a separate software, okay? So Zookeeper was a separate software, which was acting for as a controller to manage the brokers, okay? But then they created what they call KRaft, okay? So to use KRaft, you must say KRaft Mode, okay, equals to true. If you've been seeing me trying to ignore the AI suggestions, AI was trying to give me configuration of Zookeeper, okay, because by default, I'm sure uh, it has been trained on that having Zookeeper, and it was trying to suggest that by default, okay. So if you don't put KRaft Mode Zook equals to true, okay, you have to set up Zookeeper, okay? But to avoid that extra configuration of Zookeeper, okay, we simply use KRaft, which comes with Kafka itself, okay? And you say true, okay? So KRaft mode, true. As simple as that. Then, like I told you in day 58, Kafka has what is called a cluster, the concept of clusters, okay? So these nodes, and a cluster, I mean, is simply a collection of nodes, okay? A cluster is simply a collection of nodes, a number of machines working together, okay? And you have these nodes managing your entire Kafka infra, okay? And sending, publishing messages and consuming left and right. So since we have a cluster, okay, in Kafka, we need to specify a cluster ID, okay? So I'll say cluster underscore ID, okay? And the cluster ID is simply a random string, okay? I don't know how, if I can generate anything, just random, okay? Just a random string, something like this, okay? Maybe I hope that is random enough, okay? So this is simply a unique ID which is required to format a storage directory, okay? So in KRaft, all nodes must share the same cluster ID, okay? So all nodes share the same cluster ID, okay? So now we need to now also specify a unique integer, okay? A unique ID, okay? A unique integer ID for a broker, for our broker, okay? So I'm going to say, to do that, you specify a configuration called Kafka underscore node underscore ID full colon, then you can put 1, okay? So this is the integer, okay? For our, I missed an E, but I've used autocomplete, okay? So that's the first thing you need to do, okay? That our broker has a unique ID of 1, okay? Take note of that. Then the next thing you need to do, I want to configure a configuration, okay? So in a real setup, okay? In a real setup, okay? By default, Kafka by default has what they call a replication factor of 3, okay? Whereby your data is duplicated 3 times, okay? And of course, in a real production sense or environment, you don't want to have only one node, okay? You can have several nodes, okay? But for a simple setup here, and from the MVP just on my machine, I am going to make sure that one node, okay, acts as the broker and the controller, okay? So what is the broker? The broker is what is responsible for storing the data. Then the controller is what is responsible for managing, okay? Think about a Kafka setup as a set of individuals, okay, who work together, okay? But as they work together, they need one to be a leader, okay? So Kafka, okay, allows in its system, okay, one node to manage others, okay, what they call the controller, okay? But in my case, I have only one. So I'm going to make it the controller and the broker. Of course, in a real setup, you can have one as a controller okay, and another one as and others as brokers. Okay, so others storing data, which are called brokers, and one managing. Okay, and that role can be interchanged between any of them. So what else do I need? So to do that, okay, to do that, I'll say Kafka underscore process. This has to be uppercase. Kafka underscore process underscore roles. Okay, so the roles shall have number one, broker, okay, comma, controller. I need to remove this other comma here, okay, to have only one. So this defines that this node is both a broker and a controller. What does it mean for it to be a broker? It handles all the data, okay? It handles the producing or the production and consuming of messages. Then what does the controller mean? It simply means it manages the cluster state, okay? Yeah, so in production, usually you find that these roles are on separate servers, like I've said, okay? You don't have one machine working on that. Okay, I see a comment, okay, by Monk, okay. Monk with hair says, hi, Nehemiah, thanks for these tutorials. Can you tell what are the prerequisites before starting with our flight booking engine lectures? Thanks. All right, so yeah, thank you for asking the question. I always love it when people are interactive during these streams. I like to have a chat with people. Yeah, so the prerequisite, number one, you need to have a laptop, okay? For example, if you don't have a laptop, or let me say a computer like a desktop or laptop, okay, which is powerful enough to run the tech which we have here. Tech like Docker, like FastAPI, the Next.js front end, okay? So if you have about 8 GB RAM machine, okay, it can help you with an SSD maybe of around 250. It can do you good, okay? But to be very comfortable, you may need like 16 GB, okay, RAM machine. Yeah. Then also, you need to know FastAPI, okay? Because I'm using FastAPI for the backend, okay? On this channel, I have a playlist where I study FastAPI in 31 days, about 30 or 31 days, okay? You can check it and use it to learn FastAPI. The other prerequisite is that you have to understand the basics of JavaScript because the front end is being built using Next.js, okay? Yeah, but mainly I can suggest that you first of all do that playlist of FastAPI, understand FastAPI, then start on it, okay? Because I think the first 20 streams also cover the backend heavily, okay? Other things like DevOps, you don't need to worry because within the playlist, I actually teach them, okay? I teach the DevOps concepts like Terraform. We look at Terraform very well from the docs. We look at Docker like you see me explaining line by line. And also, what else comes to my mind? Yeah, everything else, I teach it, okay? So I have a playlist of FastAPI that you can look at. So you need to know FastAPI. The system design, I actually taught it, I think, in the first video. I covered the system design of this project. Yeah, that is basically it. So what is not covered here is probably the JavaScript, okay? But it's not even that much. If you know Python, okay, if you know how to program using one programming language very well, you'll see that understanding another programming language is not that hard, okay? Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't say I'm a master at JavaScript, but I can get my way around JavaScript and TypeScript, okay? Yeah, so JavaScript, think about TypeScript as JavaScript with type annotations. Yeah, that is it. Monk says, these days I'm a little busy with my office work. I will definitely complete this playlist. Big thanks for these consistent tutorials. Your channel will achieve big heights soon. Thank you, Monk. I really appreciate. Yeah, and take your time, okay? Yeah. The goal is not to finish the playlist, but to understand, okay? Yeah, so Monk, if you can, for example, out of, let me say, maybe in a week, you're able to do 2, okay? and do them perfectly, that's a win for you, okay? Because the goal is for you to understand the concepts, okay? So if every week you understand one concept or two, okay, from maybe one or two videos, that is it, okay? Yeah. Because even me, as I do this, I'm reinforcing my understanding of these concepts. That's all it's all about, okay? So says so Docker, Kubernetes, system design, which is required for the project is taught during the lectures. Yeah, so Docker, I have a everything you've seen, okay? Like when I was creating this Docker file, okay? I explained everything here, okay? What Docker is, why we need Docker, okay? Even when I was creating this Compose file, I explained, okay? So there it will be good enough, okay? Then for Kubernetes, I haven't yet applied Kubernetes to this project yet, okay? But I have a playlist where I was actually studying Kubernetes, okay? At least all the basics required, okay? So you can also check it out. Later, I'll apply K8 here, okay? System design, the first or second video in this playlist, okay, should be enough for that, okay? It should be enough for system design that is required for this project. Yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, but I appreciate your kind words towards this channel, and yeah, I hope it grows, and yeah, it will get big. Okay, because I see many of you have begun sharing. If you haven't shared, uh, go ahead to share our videos and our playlists. I've seen many of you have begun sharing. I always get analytics from YouTube and shows people have begun sharing these videos, which shows that you have learned and loved it, okay? And then you want other people in your network to share. Yeah. So if you, to study and also understand. So if you've seen that it's beneficial to you, yeah, go ahead and share it with people in your network whom you think can benefit from this. Okay. Yeah. So the goal of this project, like I've already said, is to cover this project end to end and make sure that it covers almost all projects that someone needs. Number one, to freelance, okay, and even to get practice and get good at them and earn some good money, okay. Because I'm sure if you understand these projects and try to go to do 2x, okay, twice more than I've done, yeah, you'll be good enough. And what else? Yeah, that's what I can say about this project for now. Big thanks, Nehemiah, for all the things. I appreciate. Sure, I recently discovered your channel. Will definitely recommend my peers as well. I really appreciate. Thank you, Monk. So let's go on with this Kafka setup. Yeah, so I was saying this configuration saying Kafka. Actually, should be process with two S, double S. Okay, so Kafka process roles. Okay, simply says that this broker, okay, this broker, okay, with ID 1, okay, will be both this, what is it? I'm saying this broker here, okay, or this node with ID 1 will be both a broker and a controller. What does a broker mean? It handles the data. Remember, in day 58, I said brokers handle storage of the data, okay? And it will be responsible for both producing and consuming messages. Then controller simply means it manages the cluster state, okay? Which means, and this is actually the replacement for Zookeeper, okay? So what helps us to replace Zookeeper is this KRaft, okay? It's a replacement for Zookeeper, because Zookeeper is a separate software that you have to install and manage. And yeah, so we are happy that we are doing this when KRaft is okay. So make sure you have your KRaft mode to true, and you see that this node is both the broker and controller. All right. So like I said, in production, you usually have the separate brokers, okay, and a controller, okay. Or is no, have that in your mind, okay. Have that in your mind, okay. Have that in your mind. Now let me continue. I have another setting I want to do. Okay, it is called Kafka, not Kafka. We're going to come to this Kafka listeners. I don't know why AI is going ahead of me. So the next one is called Kafka underscore control. And by the way, before I continue, do not try to cram these things. Okay, there's no need for you to cram absolutely. Okay. Yeah, these things, once you've understood them, you can use AI to generate it for you, okay? In case things go wrong, check the documentation, okay? do a Google search, and you get the correct things, okay? Don't cram, just understand, okay? So next thing is Kafka controller underscore quorum underscore voters, okay? So this defines the voting members, okay, of the cluster, okay? When this setup starts, when Kafka starts, okay, at the beginning, okay, what happens is that internally, okay, the nodes in the cluster participate in voting, okay? The nodes, okay, is a voting that happens, okay, or an election, okay, happens in Kafka, and this election determines who is the leader, okay, who's going to be the controller, okay. So the node that takes the highest votes, okay, becomes the leader or the controller, okay. So an election happens, okay. So here we now this is a configuration which determines who is eligible to vote, okay, who are the members, which nodes are eligible to vote, okay. And the vote is the syntax is this, okay. You specify the node ID, okay, then at is the separator between the node ID and the host. So you mentioned the host, okay, and full colon the port. So this is the syntax, okay. You specify the node ID, okay, then the host and the port, okay. That's how you do it. You can see AI trying to edit it to put the exact values, okay. But in our case, we have only one node, okay, one node, okay. So we're going to have a cheating, okay. There's going to be a cheating, meaning the same node is going to vote for itself and it will win. Because it will be the only one you get, okay. It will vote, and because it's the only one, the election will still, it will win the election, okay. You know, think about being unopposed, okay. So we have a node which is unopposed, we have a node which is unopposed, okay. Yeah, so I hope you've understood that. So I will come here and replace. So for the node ID, it is 1, okay. So I'll remove this node ID and say 1. Then remember I have at is the separator between the node ID and the host, okay. Then here I shall say the host will be, okay, will be at Kafka, okay, full colon. Then I now put the port. The port, I'll say 9093, okay. So this says that node 1, okay, at the host which is called Kafka. Remember this host name, our container name is called Kafka. That the node with ID 1, okay, at the host Kafka on port 9 at 9093 or 9093, okay, will participate in voting, okay. So this, okay, so this node here will participate in voting because it's the only one, it's unopposed, so it will win, okay. Yeah, okay, it will win and it will be the controller and the broker. What else comes to mind? Just checking my notes and the chat to make sure I've not missed out on anything, okay. So let me go on, okay. So the next one I need to talk about, yeah, so again, voting will, for this node, will happen at that via that port number, okay. So let's go on. So the next configuration I need is called the Kafka underscore offsets. I want to put all. You can always go to the documentation and check for anything that you need, okay. Kafka offsets topic replication factor 1, okay. I'll put it to 1, okay. Now let me explain. Remember in the previous day, in the previous video stream, day 58, I explained how Kafka by default has a replication factor of 3, okay. So by default, Kafka expects 3 replicas for high availability, okay. Understand that Kafka has 3 replicas, okay, by default. How can I explain this? Okay, by default, Kafka expects 3 replicas for high availability. Okay, this is how it performs fault tolerance. Okay, so in our case, we only have one node. Okay, so because we have one node, we have to have this value to 1. Okay, we have to lower it to 1. Or if we don't do that, the cluster will fail to start. You get. So we have to lower the value to 1. By default, it is 3. Okay, so by default, Kafka expects 3 replicas, okay, for high availability. But so we shall only have 1 there. Okay, now next up, we're going to go into listeners, okay? What AI has been pushing us to do since the beginning, okay? So we're going to talk about networking listeners, okay? So these ones are very crucial for Kafka networking, okay? And usually you can find that maybe I can personally find it like the hardest part, okay? Yeah. But this config is going to set up 3 specific channels, okay? The first channel, okay? Do you remember the notes I showed you, okay? We have talked about KRaft, okay? We talked about, so we're now here, okay? We're now on configuring listeners, okay? This is where we are right now, okay? So follow along, okay? Now, okay, I'm going to say Kafka, let's be uppercase, Kafka underscore listeners. AI kept suggesting this. I was expecting it to now, what is it called? To now to now give me the things, okay? Very fast, but it was feeling sweet, okay? Not pretending not to know what Kafka listeners is. But anyway, it has done it, okay? So I'm going to explain Kafka listeners, okay? So this is simply a network interface, okay? A Kafka listener is simply a network interface, okay? And ports, okay? Which the container binds to. I'll repeat it. It's an interface and a port which a container binds to. That's what a Kafka listener is. So listeners, many means it's a group of network interfaces and ports which the container binds to or listens to, okay? So we have mainly 3 networks, okay? Think about it as 3 networks, okay? Or different levels of communication. We have internal configuration, okay? Internal traffic. So you can hear people saying internal traffic, internal communication, internal network, the same thing, okay? So internal traffic is communication within the cluster, okay? Within the Docker, not cluster, but within Docker, okay? So for internal communication within Docker, we need to specify the listener, okay? What port do we listen to, okay? Then we also need one for external, okay? For traffic or communication coming from our machine, okay? From outside, okay? The container. We also need to specify it, okay? Then also we need one which is private for only the controller, okay? Which for KRaft, okay? To manage, okay? For KRaft to use. So we're going to have 3. Plain one, the internal one for internal Docker use, okay, will be called plain text, okay? And this one will help our tools like our FastAPI app, okay, to communicate to Kafka. It's called plain text, okay? So here I want to edit this. I'll say plain text. Then I'll put the address 000 just to whitelist it and say enable everything, allow everything from within, okay? Then I can put the usual common default port 29092, okay? So this is internally, okay, for internal traffic, okay? That is called plain text, okay? It is called plain text. So if you're enjoying this, like the video, okay? And share it with people in your network. All right. The next one is called for private use by only the controller or by KRaft, okay? To manage its traffic, okay? For controller traffic or communication management is called, you say controller, okay? Controller, then full colon, okay? Yeah, this address was okay. It's actually a common address that you'll see people using in their Kafka setups, okay? the host on the port. Okay, host port. Okay, then finally we shall have now external. Okay, external full colon in autocomplete. Okay, so externally we shall interact from our machine with Kafka on port 9002. And that's what we have here. Okay, are you seeing this in this configuration on line 38? Is what we have. Okay. Okay, what else do I need? Actually, I think these have to be comma separated if I'm not mistaken. Okay, comma separated like that. Okay. All right. So another thing you have to know is that when Kafka, okay, when not Kafka, but when our application, okay, connects to Kafka, okay, Kafka always also responds, okay, the broker, okay, responds and gives back clients, okay, the addresses it should connect to, okay, the addresses which the broker gives clients for them to connect to is called, or is defined in a setting called Kafka advertised listeners. Okay, and you can see AI trying to suggest it here. So I'll hit tab to autocomplete. Okay, then I'm going to make some edits. Okay, because I accepted its code, it's now getting crazy, trying to suggest a lot of stuff. I'm going to remove a number of things. Okay, so the first one I'm going to remove will be, for the controller, we don't need this. Okay, because when the client is communicating from outside, communicating, okay, the one that will be for internal use, like when our FastAPI app, which is in the container, okay, is communicating with Kafka, we shall need this. Okay, the the plain text. Okay, then for external use, like from our machine, we shall need this. Okay, but for external use, actually, this our machine needs to know. Our machine, we're going to use localhost. Actually, from our machine, we're going to use localhost. This has to be lowercase. Okay, it's going to be localhost. Then at this port 9092. Okay, 9092. Then what else? For plain text, okay, for our FastAPI app, okay, to communicate with Kafka, okay, we want Kafka to send back the address, okay, which has the host name. This host name Kafka. Okay, so here I'll not put 000. I'll remove it. Okay, and I'll say Kafka. Okay, Kafka. Because that's the host name the container host name we mentioned there. Okay, then when a client connects now, okay, like if for example, like FastAPI tries to connect to Kafka, okay, Kafka will send it this address, use this address for connecting. Then if we try to connect to Kafka ourselves from like our terminal, then we shall have this. So external, like, think of it like from our terminal. Then plain text is for internal using in the container. And one of the things that is in our container will be this FastAPI app, okay, and we'll connect to Kafka through this port. Okay, then of course Kafka will be smart enough to know that, okay, what we are looking for is this. Okay, we shall listen on this port internally. Okay, and if anybody is coming from localhost, okay, we shall use this. Okay, then for the controller, we shall use that. Wow, I feel like I've added a lot of stuff for you guys here. Okay, but maybe it's a good thing that you know a lot of configuration concerned with Kafka. Checking my notes to see if there's anything else. Okay. Then you're almost there. There's another configuration. Okay. This configuration is responsible for mapping, okay, a custom listener, okay, a custom listener name to a security protocol. Okay. Listen again. There's a configuration for mapping a listener to a security protocol. Remember, we have talked about our listeners here, okay? The plain text, the controller, the external, okay? So for every listener, we're going to map to a security protocol, okay? So I'm going to do this. I'll say Kafka underscore listener. Sometimes AI can get crazy. Listener underscore security protocol map. Okay. So look at this. Okay. All of them, I think plain text has a value of plain text. Controller has a value of plain text. External also has a value of plain text. Okay. Why? Because plain text has no encryption. Okay. So all of them have a value of plain text, plain text, plain text. Okay. Meaning no encryption or SSL. SSL. Wow. I almost bit my tongue saying that. Okay. So no encryption or SSL for our local development setup. Okay. So how do you add encryption in your security protocol? Yeah, research about it. Okay. Try to think and research about it. Okay. So checking the chat if there's any question and checking. Okay, it's okay. We can now continue. What else? What configuration? Okay. Then there's another configuration. Okay. Another configuration. Okay. Which you can do. Okay. Which you can specify to tell Kafka. Okay. Which listener defined, okay, above is strictly for KRaft controller communication. Okay. Tell Kafka that which listener is strictly for KRaft controller communication. That configuration is called Kafka underscore controller with one L, I guess. Really? No, two L's. Controller underscore names like that. Okay. And this one shall simply say controller. Okay. So the controller listener is the one which is strictly for KRaft controller communication. Okay. Then what else do we need to specify? Okay. I can also do another one, okay, which says Kafka, please use the plain text listener for internal replication between brokers. Okay. It is called, I keep typing in lowercase, I don't know why. Kafka, and AI is suggesting what we already have. Kafka inter broker listener name, okay, to plain text, okay. So that's how you specify. And for this one, actually, it has to be uppercase. This AI thing can mislead you sometimes, okay. I'm starting to think some autocompletes have issues, okay. Yeah, but we shall code review this. So Kafka interbroker listener name. Okay, so this is the configuration. Like I've said, it tells Kafka to use the plain text listener for internal replication between brokers. Okay, but of course, we have only one broker. And then the previous one tells Kafka which listener, which has been defined above, is strictly for controller communication. Okay. And actually, if you look at these configurations, some of them make sense by just reading them. Okay, by just reading them, you understand what it does. Okay, then what else do I need? Okay, so we now need to talk about configuration for storage. Okay, for storage is something called Kafka underscore log underscore dirs. Okay, for directories. Okay, and this simply specifies where inside the container we are going to store Kafka data, okay, or Kafka logs. Okay, simply saying store Kafka logs at this location. You get it? Store Kafka logs at this location. That is what simply that setting does. And to do this, I am going to say what was it that I used earlier from my notes? I'll say /temp. Okay. But even when I have notes that I follow along, so don't think I know everything by my mind. No. So Kafka / KRaft / combined dash logs. Okay. / TMP, for those of you who are used to Linux, okay, you know what the temp for TMP directory is for. Then craft dash, or I don't know, hyphen, yeah, combined hyphen logs. Okay. Then what do we need to do? I now need to specify volumes. Okay. So I'm going to name, we're going to map, okay, the name Docker volume, okay. It's going to be called Kafka KRaft, okay, to the containers data directory, okay. So this will ensure that our topics, okay, and messages are persisted even if we delete the container. Okay, what is the purpose of a volume? It is to help us to persist data when we delete containers and restart and recreate them, okay, so that we still have our data intact, okay. So I'm going to define a volume. So outside this, we're now done with the environment, okay. So we're done with the environment, okay. I'll say volumes, okay. Come down here, tab, say minus, okay. I'll say I'll call it Kafka underscore KRaft full colon, okay. Then you can say /var /lib /Kafka /data autocomplete from AI, okay. So like I've told you, all these things are similar, okay. So you see, like for the, if I go to not Redis, but DB, okay, we also have a volume, okay. Even for the FastAPI app, we have a volume. So similar concepts, okay, of volumes, okay. And because we have now specified it, okay, here, okay, we've said that we have a Kafka underscore KRaft, okay. We need to come down here, okay, in the volumes and now declare it, okay. Otherwise, we shall have issues, okay. So let's autocomplete the suggestion from AI by pressing tab, okay. And like you see, this one simply matches this, okay. So they have to be exact spelling, okay. Yeah, don't try to be fancy and modify it, okay. You'll cry and wonder where the bug is coming from. Yep. So we are done with the volumes. Next step, we also need to talk about the health check. I think we also had here. You see, we had add health checks. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have health checks. Okay, just to make sure that everything is okay. Okay. So the health check. Okay, we'll have a command. Okay. This command will of course run inside the container to simply see if Kafka is responsive. Okay, as simple as that. Again, what am I going to define? A health check. What does the health check do? Simply runs a command inside our container, okay, to see that Kafka is responsive. Okay, yeah, and it's going to have a number of values. The first one is called the interval. The second one is called the timeout. Other one is called the retries. So the interval, the timeout, and the retry are going to define how often to check, okay, and when to give up, okay, yeah. So how often to check and how often when to give up. So for the command, okay, for the command, shall say, I'll come here outside and I say health check, okay. So they can see AI is suggesting some good stuff, okay. I'll press tab to autocomplete, okay, then explain to you. So test is the command, okay. So this is the command that is going to be run inside the container, okay, to see if Kafka is responsive. What is the command? Okay, says cmd, okay, the command line, okay. Run says Kafka topics sh, but we don't have an sh file, okay. So there's a command called Kafka topics, just like this, okay. I'll say Kafka topics, and this simply is a command to list the topics, okay. Then we pass an option called ---- bootstrap server, okay. Do you remember the meaning of bootstrap server? I urge you, if you've forgotten, watch the 58. Okay, again, I talked about this. Okay, This is me making you to think critically. Bootstrap server was covered in the previous video. Yeah. So you pass an option, then yeah, it runs saying, what is it called? Localhost, okay? 9092 or 9092, okay? Then it's saying minus describe. You can even keep it simple, okay? No need for details, okay? I say minus list, okay? Then what is other things? Oh, it had added other things here. I'm going to delete them, okay? Yeah. So look at this command again, cmd Kafka topics minus bootstrap server localhost 992 minus list. Yeah. Then how often to do this? Every 30 milliseconds. Okay. When do we time out? After 5 seconds. I think 5 seconds. Not, this is 30 seconds, not 30 milliseconds. Timeout. That. How many times to retry? 5. Okay. Yeah. This is a health check. So like I've said, the test simply a command which runs inside the container just to see that Kafka is responsive. And then the interval, the timeout, and retry simply define how often to check and when to give up. Okay, but all this simply help us to mark that the container status is healthy or unhealthy. So hope that makes sense. What else is remaining? Yeah, so let's wrap up. We're almost there. We can now talk about Kafka UI. Okay, so this is Kafka. We are done. So we need Kafka. You think about Kafka UI as a dashboard. Okay, so we're creating a dashboard. So you can see, initially people use this thing called Zookeeper. Okay, so you see AI is trying to suggest to use Zookeeper, but this is fake. Okay, this is not fake but dumb, because I would expect that if you've seen me here saying, if AI has seen me saying, where in the environment, okay, I'll set up KRaft mode true, okay, then why are you suggesting to me Zookeeper, okay? But when I'm saying KRaft mode, okay, you see that I have a node which is both a broken controller. You see, what else? Okay, I have all this, the controller names, interbroker listener name, okay, the Kafka listeners, but even just KRaft mode true should prompt AI not to suggest to me Zookeeper. Yeah, so AI has some work to do also. Shows you why it's important to understand things for yourself. So I'll minimize all this and let's create the Kafka UI service. Okay, so I'll come here and say Kafka dash UI full colon. Okay, tab. So the image. Okay, so I'll use this is Provectus Labs / Kafka UI. Okay. Yeah. So for this, I've just hit tab because yeah, some of the things are repetitive and are common. Okay. They're common, but let me explain them again. Like I've told you, start seeing patterns. Okay. Like you see, we have an image, we have an image. We have a container name, we have a container name. We have ports, we have ports. We have an environment, we have an environment. Okay, then also depends on something that you can set up. Okay, so this Provectus Labs Kafka UI latest is simply says use the popular open source UI tool by Provectus Labs. Okay, by Provectus. Okay, so we're using the latest, but again, yeah, you can edit it, send a pull request. Okay, put a stable version here. Okay, then the container name will be simply called Kafka UI. Okay. Do we need it? Yeah, it can do. Then the ports, okay, you say access this UI on port 8080. Okay, so the first value is the host mapping, next value is the internal port mapping. Then we have the environment, it says, which is Kafka clusters 0 name. Okay, So this simply gives the cluster a friendly name in the UI, the user interface. In this case, it will be called local. Then we have this one which says Kafka cluster 0 bootstrap servers. Okay, so this one simply tells the UI, or the user interface, which is Kafka UI, to connect to the Kafka broker using the internal Docker network. Okay, which is defined in the plain text listener. Okay, remember Kafka 9092. If I go up here, okay, and I open environment, okay, do you see how the plain text listener is working? Okay, we have a plain text listener here. Okay, this one defined, and we specified the advertised listener name, which is Kafka that. Okay, so yeah, this is how to pick up on these things. So yeah, but this one cannot be 99 too. Okay, this is wrong because are you seeing this? Okay, we say we have a plain text listener, this, okay, for internal Docker use. Then we advertise it here. Okay, when you connect the first time, for the first time, okay, when a client connects, okay, the broker gives back this, okay, for internal use. So meaning down here, this value of 9092 is wrong. It has to be 29, just be 29092. Okay, exactly this. Otherwise, oh my god, AI can, like, I expect these are the things I expect like AI by now to be doing correctly. Okay, by seeing what is above here, this should be correct. So yeah. So what else? Yeah. Okay, I think that is okay. Then what else do we have here? It says depends on. Okay, so we want to ensure that the UI container does not attempt to start until this Kafka container here, okay, is fully up and running. Again, what is the purpose of depends on? Depends on simply is going to help us to ensure that Kafka UI does not start until this other Kafka container reports itself to be fully up and running. Okay, meaning it must pass this health check. Okay, so meaning down here, okay, for that to work, we have to say I said it depends on, okay, Kafka. I put a block like this, Kafka. So by this, I'm referring to this one here. Okay, this is container here, Kafka. This one. Okay, depends on Kafka, and I'm going to put a condition. The condition should be service healthy. Okay, so the health check that we defined up here. Okay, this one will be run. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. So I think you see how the health check is important. Okay. All right. What else? What else? What else comes to mind? What comes to mind? What comes to mind? What is missing? Okay. So I need to run this. Okay. In case there's any issue, then we review. Just doing a time check and looking at my chat. The chat. Okay. Okay. So in case you have a question, feel free to ask. In case you want to teach me something, okay, I might have missed out something, I've made a mistake, don't hesitate to let me know. So I'll clear this. Okay, actually I thought I had many terminals open. Okay, cd into backend, docker compose r minus build. Okay, in fact, this is there need for us to build? Okay, is there need for us to build? Do I need to build? Think about it. Okay, let me just say sudo, just to give permission. Compose app minus build. Okay. Even just look our Compose app. Okay. Because I think earlier when I was testing, I built these. Okay. Let us see. So you can see Kafka. Yeah, that's okay. Check this. Says dependency failed to start. Container Kafka exited. Okay, with 1. So something failed. So if you look at this java.lang, says requirement failed. Okay, if I zoom out a little bit, says requirement failed. Okay, let's read it. Says, where is this error? Says controller.listener.names must contain. Come on, I didn't intend to scroll. Controller.listener.names must contain at least one value appearing in the listeners. Okay, in the listeners configuration when running Kafka raft at scalar. So listener.names must contain at least one value. Okay, so let's debug. Scroll up here. I mean, reduce this, not scroll, but minimize it. And maybe I can zoom out a little bit to see the wider picture, okay, of everything. Then I want to look at every line and compare with my notes what I wanted to do to see if I have done it correctly. Okay, so I'll start from up here and say, okay, the image is okay, Kafka is okay, the ports 992, the environment, Kafka KRaft Mode is true, the cluster ID is that, the Kafka node ID is that, the Kafka process roles of the broker and the controller, the Kafka quorum voters, you have 1, Kafka at 1993, Kafka offset topic replication factor is 1. Then we go to Kafka listeners, okay, plain text, okay, /2//slashes zeros. How many zeros are these? 1 2 3 4. Okay, :29092, comma controller :4 zeros with periods separating them, 9093 external. Okay, the same, I think this is also similar. Okay, yeah, and now you see this controller is 93. Okay, the voting will need the controller. So you see the voting was put at this address, at this port. Okay, because the controller is also having that port, and it's the controller that will help with this whole voting process and management. Okay, then advertise listeners, plain text. Okay, :Kafka :29092, comma external. Okay, :/localhost 1992. Okay, so what is missing? Okay, looks like my mind is tired. If you can see it, do not hesitate to let me know. Config listeners protocol map. Okay, config listeners map. What was the error again? Controller.listeners must contain at least one value appearing in the listeners configuration when running the KRaft. Okay, must have one value appearing in the listeners configuration. But I thought I have okay, let's continue. So here, so the Kafka listener security config map. Okay. So for the plain text, it's plain text. For the controller, it's plain text. For the external, it's plain text. I'm wondering if this has any particular order it should be in. Then Kafka controller. Oh, yeah. I think this could be the issue. Let me read the error message again. Sometimes it's good to read the error messages again and again to make sure that you understand what is going on. So this says, requirement failed, control.listeners.names must contain at least one value appearing in the listener's configuration when running the KRaft controller. So I think the issue was here, okay? Yeah, and I'm innocent. I blame AI. Yeah. Interesting. This is crazy. This is crazy. So I'm supposed to here. The mistake is here. Okay. It's supposed to be Kafka controller listener names. Listener underscore names. Okay. Yeah. It's supposed to be like this. So specifically tell us what listener is the what is it called? The controller. Yeah. So which listener is to be used strictly for KRaft controller communication. Yeah. Then what else could I have missed out? Kafka interbroker listener name. Is it names or name? Okay, so I think it's name. Kafka log does. So I think that is it. Let me run this again. Docker Compose app. Let's see. So you can see says user configuring, running in KRaft mode, running preferred checks, check if this one is writable, running KRaft, skipping Zookeeper, okay, good, using provided cluster ID, launching. I'm starting to think if you don't give a cluster ID, it will set its own. Launching Kafka, okay. So say rewrite.log, goes on. Okay. Continue, let me scroll. Okay. So you see, look at this. Listener name controller. Okay. Happy to see that in the logs. I can now zoom in a little bit. Okay. Scroll. Yes, I can now scroll until the end. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to find me reading every line of this. Okay. So look at this nice printout. Okay. Look at this, using generated security password. Crazy. Okay. So I think that is it. I need to check. Let us check the UI. Okay. Remember, Kafka UI is running at this. Okay. So need to go to the browser. So I guess we have checked all this. Okay. We've done all this. So the browser say localhost. Is it 8080? Okay. There we are. Okay. So this is the Kafka UI. Awesome, isn't it? Awesome. So yeah, so you can see, you can jump, you can I see this name code local. This name code local is the one that we have here. Where is my code? Scroll down. Where is it? It's this one here. Cluster name local. Okay, and this is what it used for connecting. Okay, according to this listener name, where is it? Advertised listeners. This one. Perfect, isn't it? Then I come here to the browser again. So this is our dashboard. See, it says we have only one cluster, okay, for our development setup, and it says we have 0 clusters which are offline. What else do we have here? If I go down, if I go actually to the menu here and I click on brokers, see how many brokers do we have? One broker. How many controllers do we have? One active controller. Okay, I mean how many controllers? One active controller, and we know that we have one broker which is acting both as the controller and the broker. But we know that in a production, I will increase actually. I'll increase. I can have maybe like about 3 brokers, maybe 1 broker per service. Okay, in one contract. Remember, these things can elect, and from time to time, if one goes down, another one can be elected as the leader. So partitions for now we have 0. Okay, you have no topics actually created yet. So this makes sense. If I go to topics, okay, so you see we don't have any topic yet. Okay, if I go to consumers, no active consumer groups found. Awesome. I'm very happy. Okay, I'm very, very happy. Sometimes it's nice for things to go wrong so that you learn. So if you're enjoying this, like, subscribe, share. Okay, let's share this massively. And I want to show you something else. Yeah, very, very happy with this success today. I want to show you what else. If I go to topics, okay, remember here, say we can create in our to do, okay, what to do today. We can just create a test topic, okay. Say add topic, okay. Topic maybe upload ticket, okay, maybe pay, okay. Say upload ticket, okay. Upload ticket, okay. You can specify the number of partitions it should have, maybe 2, okay. You can specify the cleanup policy, the duplication factor, okay. When should it, how long should it retain data? Can say maybe 1 day, okay. And of course, this is 1 day in milliseconds, so 7 days, whole week, okay. You can set the size, click create topic, okay. So when I create the topic, you see it as said, 2 partitions, replication factor of 1, okay. Type external in sync replicas are 2, okay. So you can see the messages themselves, if there's a message, consumer, the settings, statistics, okay. So we're going to see all these, okay, but I don't need this topic, okay. So I can select it, okay, and come here and remove topic, okay. But we're going to have our program is going to create these topics, okay, like I explained to you in day 58, okay. So to understand this, you need to understand day 58 very well. Understand what a topic is, understand what a consumer is, understand what a producer is, understand what it's topic, consumer, producer, broker. Those are the main concepts of Kafka that you need to understand. So with this, we are on our way to success with our Kafka interpretation. I was going to say Kafka interpretation. I guess my tongue is now tired. Yeah, but with our Kafka setup, okay, and configuration. So in the next stream, we shall get into it, okay, and go to the next step. Do not get tired of learning. Let's continue learning and growing together. So bye.